All right, greetings. Turn up the video speed. So, the last couple videos I did in long form fashion were more for the normies, kind of like salvation of the normies to some degree, where it's like, hey, you common borns, you don't have to deal with the city prices. But I thought I'd talk about something that's more kin to my people or people that are adjacent to what I am, which is I'm kind of a nomadic drifter. People that are woodsmen, or people that are into the whole homesteading, farmsteading thing. What type of land would you buy? What criteria would I use? Like if I had to do all over again, I know damn well I wouldn't have bought this house. This is a great house. Don't get me wrong. The remodel turned out really well, but it's not really. This place is only this is an okay place. And I've often said when it comes to traveling and comes to life, if a place is just okay and you can enjoy everything that you want to do, just living in a van, like all the outdoor things during most of the year, you can just go do them without having to own a place. Why would you buy a place? And so I look at things from a kind of a different standpoint because, for instance, have you seen the cost of food in the grocery stores? Well, what are some ways to get around that? And by the way, Freedom Phil, like and subscribe. And hey, feel free to share the video. And yeah, turn up the video speed. Let's get into it. When I'm talking about this grocery problem, it's like I look at the price of vegetables and you think about this one for a second. It's like, a lot of these crops, for as expensive as they are, these are genetically modified organisms and whatnot, which I don't really have so much of a problem with that. But they've made it to where these crops that can stand Roundup and pesticides and everything else. So if I don't know if you remember when you were a kid, but when they sprayed Roundup on something, it just died. So the idea that you spray Roundup on all these crops that we're going to eat and these crops don't die means that crap is in them. All the crap you put into the soil is in that food. And this is what people, the government, whatnot, tells you is safe for your children to eat. Sure, it's better than just high fructose corn death, but by how much? They talk about the increasing cancer and all this other stuff in this country. I wonder if that's got something to do with it. So, one of the things I've kind of realized, when I was a little kid, my family had a garden. Was it the greatest garden? No, but it was kind of cool. And so when I get older, I'll probably eventually, if I settle down, if I really settle down. And I don't know if I'll ever have chickens or livestock. And the reason for that is, do I really want to be settled down to where I'm basically stuck there? And the answer is no. But seasonally, would I want to be in a place where I can grow my own crops? Oh, hell yeah. Now, let me give you a little backstory on me. I grew up on the North Olympic Peninsula. It is a wet, verdant paradise. It is a jungle of sorts, and it's a wet, cold jungle. And the thing that's nice about it is you can grow lots of food, and there's lots of food that grows for free out in the wild. Like when I was a kid, we planted a peach tree. Like when I got out of bed and I looked out the window, I could see Vancouver Island. So we planted a peach tree, a frost peach, and it produced ridiculously well. Like so heavily. Like I don't know if it was by the time I was 16 or 18. We came back from the family reunion when we go down there and see the Oregon Shakespearean Festival as well. And we came back and one half a major branch of the tree broke off because it was that heavy. So I can grow everything up there but citrus and avocados. It's that wonderful. It's great. So you get that certain time of the year, early season, and you got your cherries, and then you got cherries, strawberries, raspberries, all that kind of around the same time, and this continues on throughout the summer. And then you get to a certain time and you start getting plums and peaches and apricots. And then coming towards fall, you got pears, and then you got apples of all different varieties through different times of the late summer and the fall. So there's all this food that just wants to grow there relatively easy. And when it comes to your trees, you do need to watch out for the tent caterpillars. You got to learn how to check your branches. Also prune your trees so there's less to maintain. You go over and make sure to get the egg clusters before they turn into caterpillars when they're still dormant. But yeah, I mean, just food. Food wants to grow. And then you got rhubarb, you got blueberries, you got all sorts of root vegetables. You can grow tomatoes. And fact is, you probably could grow citrus if you just had like, a greenhouse. Like if you did a geothermal greenhouse, you could definitely grow citrus there. But how much work do you really put into it? Now, then we get to all you can grow. But what about all that grows for you? Like Mother Nature. And I didn't know so much about this when I was a little kid, but I got a buddy who was really into that stuff. So we'd hang out in the outlands, and we were out smelting or fishing or just hanging out. And he's like, oh yeah, this is edible. And so we we just start harvesting like some of the stuff like stinging nettles, how to process those. One thing I'd like to learn how to do is how to can stinging nettles like you would spinach. And why? Because if nature grows me all this food all over the place, then I don't have to waste 1 inch, 1 square inch growing a similar vegetable. Like I can grow more luxurious vegetables instead of staple vegetables if nature's producing staples. I know a lot of people say, a lot of those wild edibles are bitter. Sure they are bitter, but here's the thing about it. They're full of vitamins, minerals, and all sorts of stuff. So I look at that and I'm like, yeah, sure, it's bitter, but I only need a tiny amount to get what would be a giant bowl of salad. Like this ridiculous, like you're chock full of salad. Your stomach feels like it's going to explode and you barely got any nutrients because it's all grown with chemicals and pesticides and shit. As we're nature has it growing like a weed out there. And so there's just so many different things out there. You got your mushrooms, your morels, your, what's it called? Masatakis. You got your oyster mushrooms, your, what are those? Chanterelles. There's a lot of others. There's there's so much I don't know that you could spend a lifetime. You find when it comes to mushrooms, I'm just telling you, find the oldest, wisest person there, or the young person that knows all of it too. You learn from people that aren't dead. And what about the sea, the coast? You can go out to some of those places and there's rocks that are just covered with mussels, and you can just gather mussels. Pro tip on that: you don't want to go out when low tide is at its peak. You want to go out there about an hour before low tide finally hits the final low. That way you've already got all your food. And also, what about seaweed? Bull kelp. Have any of you ever had a bull kelp pickle? When that bull kelp is like this big long tube, you cut it into pickle spears and you water bath can it. I've done that. I went up to Clear Cuts. They have big slag piles, and I load up those green army bags. And, I load up a ton of slag wood, and then down in the campground, I just water bathed all the pickles I need for the year. So in that case, I could avoid using space for certain things like that. And by the way, seaweed is full of a lot of good vitamins and minerals and all sorts of things. And I know some people say, well, the ocean's full of mercury and plastic. Yep, so is the whole world these days. But it's also full of minerals. The other thing you can do too with that seaweed is you get the seaweed, it's kind of washing up. You go and you take a bunch of it and you wash it as much as possible, get as much of out of it, and you make seaweed tea for your garden. You use it in your compost, and it just adds so much to what you can do. So we're talking about, that's some of the amenities that I look at and think about long term. If I was to slow down, settle down, like seasonally, instead of being like, because when I go back to trucking, I'm just going to probably another 10 or 15 years drive truck or however long, put away a bunch of money, invest a bunch of money. And that'll be good. But when I finally decide, okay, I've had enough, I'm going to go out and, eventually we're going to have automated vehicles anyway. So it'll all come to an end. Maybe 8 months up north and then down in the wasteland for 4 months during the winter, So let's get down to that is the fundamental criteria, is things I look at. Then you got to look at, one of them is going to be kind of weird. For instance, does the state that you like allow you to have composting toilets? Does it allow you to build a little tiny home? Does it allow you to be off grid? Or do you have to do the fake thing off grid where you have a little tiny home and then you tell them, oh, I use the bathroom in the RV. And then we just have a little trailer. You even get the trailer. I've seen people do this where they have the trailer where the turd tank goes into the trailer, and then they just take it to town once in a blue moon, when in truth, they're really using a composting toilet. Really, the only time that turd trailer gets any action is when you have normies that come to visit. Is this a place that's going to allow you to have a composting toilet or an incinerator toilet? All right. States and some counties have issues about that. When I was living out in the woods, early 20s, the county I was in had this big uproar about, you're not allowed to collect water in a rain barrel. And I remember, I'm like, what? This is Western Washington. It always rains. I mean, imagine if you told that to somebody in Forks. That'd be the biggest joke. But in fact, if I remember right, Forks was part of that county. So yeah, they did get told that. That had to be a really interesting comment, especially for the old people. So you're saying you're worried about water supply. But like, for real. And I've seen this in drier climates. And to me, it doesn't come down to there's no logical reason other than that, just power and control. They want you to punch a well. They want you to get the permits. They want you to do all this crap, and it's you handing money to other people instead of you being self-sufficient. And my line on it is this: at some point, if people want to claim that the water that falls from the sky belongs to the state or some guy that has water rights, well, then you're responsible for fixing my roof. If your water from your rain ever damages my home, you're responsible for it. Oh, that sounds ridiculous. Well, so does telling me that I can't collect the water that I'll use, but then eventually will be part of nature. It will, like, think about this for a second. When you let's say you use biocompatible soaps, nothing toxic, nothing nasty. There's no reason for it. You use good green cleaning supplies, and you get done taking a bath or using a washing machine. Like, so you use the shower first, and then it goes down to a tank, and then you use it for your washing machine because it's just your skin. What do you care? And then it goes down and it waters your fruit trees. And some of that water is just going to go back into nature. Why is that an issue? It's the same water being soaking down into the system. I'm just getting a couple uses out of it before it goes in there. And you really got to know where you're moving to and whether they're going to have a bone to pick about this. Also, is this one of those places, like coming back to the composting toilets, are they going to be like, you have to have a septic system for you to live in this house? And think of how insane this is. Like, think about this one for a second. Let's just say you had the low use toilet, like Biffy portable toilet. What I mean by low use, let's say you had a warehouse and it was sort of heated, but you had little pods in there where, you had little bachelor pods. And people just went to the gym to shower and do workouts and stuff. So they weren't paying an insane amount of rent. Why is it somebody can tell you, let's say you had a shower at your work, you can't sleep in this building because it's not made for residential, blah, blah, blah. Yeah, remember those old businesses where they had like Bob's Burgers, where the business was on bottom and then the house was on top? Why don't you see that? And the answer to me is usually a lot of people's power and control. They want to take more money out of you and have you working more. So you got to know when you're going to purchase property, what that county, I don't care what part of the country you want to live in, what it can do for you and what it can do against you. And sometimes I've seen cases where people, when they bought into a piece of property, whether it was an HOA, and not all HOAs are bad. I mean, I'm going to be honest with you, most HOAs are really no different to me. Actually, I feel like in an HOA, I have more control than I do with city councils, because city councils, a lot of times you see the election, you're like, I'm not saying it's rigged, but it feels that way, or it's like it's the same group of people that are the good old boys in the town. I don't really have much of a say. I got one vote. As we're in an HOA, yes, I have one vote, but I actually have a vote in that versus the city council deciding what's going to happen. So you got to be in a place that's not going to turn around down the road and screw you over and say you can't be who you are, live the way you do. So I look at those type of criterias. Now, these last ones, this one kind of makes sense the older you get. And I'll give you a quick story on that because I met an old guy and I thought he was crazy. This is back when I lived out in the woods for 4 years in my early 20s. He was riding the bus. He was talking about, well, me and my brother both got an inheritance, and he spent his money on this sort of thing, and I spent my money. I bought a brand new pickup. And I said, well, why are you riding the bus? And he's like, well, the way I figure it is, if I keep my pickup in my garage, anytime I need something for a pickup reason, my pickup will basically be brand new for the rest of my life. But if I, 20 miles there and back to town, so 40 miles a day, maybe more if you're farting around, that's a lot of miles for no reason. He says, I ride the bus. He says the cost of gas plus the miles I'm not putting on my rig, that'll be good. That one vehicle will be good for the rest of my life. And so I took that to heart because I was like, yeah, I mean, if I got old, would I really want to have to piss away good miles? Or let's say I'm driving an old vehicle. The old vehicle serves my local needs, but going long distances is going to be a good idea. So I just catch a bus, go into town, do my shopping. Like, for instance, if you ride the Clom Transit, it'll drop you off in Port Angeles, basically right near a grocery store at the top of town. Then you can literally ride a bike to everything else. And, it's all downhill. If you happen to ride the Jefferson Transit, it dumps out right next to a grocery store, right next to the bus depot. And it's a flat town, so you can ride around anywhere. So you could go into town on the morning bus, go do a little farting around stuff, and then, hit up the grocery store, and then basically bada bing, bada boom, head back out. And going as far south as my place is, God, are you more than 50 miles south of town? So it's a pretty good deal for a guy like myself. But yeah, I mean, the way I look at it is that that's one of the major criteria. Now, this is the weird one. I look at how many airwave TV stations can I pick up in an area. And part of the reason I bought the property that I did was I can pick up the Bellingham channels, the Seattle channels, and the Tacoma channels. People are like, well, it's just TV, or you could just pay for TV. My objective is not to pay for TV. I don't want one more bill. The less bills I have, the better. You know, the less checks I got to write, the less people I got to deal with, less people putting fingers in my pocket, the better. And so, yeah, I pick up 50 to 60 channels, and a lot of them are the same ones I like, the same ones I like in the wasteland. 50 to 60 channels for free. And a lot of people say, well, was that really a big deal? Okay, so you got your radio, which is good. And then you got your books, your audiobooks. Audiobooks are great. And then how's your internet in the area? The internet there where I was at was okay. It wasn't great. It was okay. And I imagine it's improved since then. But the point of it is that when I can basically have this much entertainment, I have a wide variety of forms of entertainment between hobbies that I'm doing around the little homestead, picking wild edibles, going out cutting firewood. And then I've got TV shows I'm looking forward to watch. It actually extends my ability to be in the middle of nowhere. Like people say, how do you live alone for as long as you do? Well, I don't know if you know, but there's a bunch of shows, TV, internet, video games, Nintendo Switch games. By the way, handheld systems, the best. And okay, I'll admit, a good PC game rig, yeah, that's tops. But as far as a drifter, van lifer, trucker, you know, love that Switch. Love the Switch. Love my old DSs. They're great. And so what I'm getting at with this is that, yeah, if I'm picking land, I want to know that the land in general, what can it grow? What does it produce naturally? What's allowed? What can I do? You know, who's going to be up my ass about something? And like, you got to figure out those parts first. Like, you might like an area, but let's be real. You got to make sure that what you want to do is possible without having to fight, go to court, spend thousands of dollars fighting the government. And by the way, they got unlimited money. You got limited money, they got unlimited. So you got to realize if you can avoid the fight to begin with, that's even better. And what about, okay, one last criteria if you're going to continue working. What's the tax situation of that state? If you have investments, or is there a state income tax? Like Washington State, amazingly, still doesn't have any state income tax. Let me explain why that is. Timber. The timber pays for the things that normal state income would. Same thing with Nevada, except for it's not timber, it's mineral rights. A lot of people think it's gambling. Gambling might contribute, but the mineral rights are really the prime reason. And then like Tennessee, another wonderful state. That's a very good climate down there. And then you look at it and it's like, mineral, coal rights, oil, gas, Texas oil, gas. Texas is a beautiful state too. Highly recommend it. I don't know about some of these states like Nevada and Texas, I don't really know about the foraging wild edible thing. Although, if you spend enough time learning from the right people, I imagine there's everything. There's a myriad of things down there. And this is kind of where you could spend a lifetime learning all the different wild edibles across America. And one of the things I'd have to say as a closing thought, because it's been damn near 20 minutes now, is I think one of the greatest losses that happened. I mean, when people talk about the things that happened to the First Nations people, that sucks. That's sad. But the loss of knowledge of natural plants and, the cycles of animals and all that, and the understanding of that, just the complete obliteration of all that wild knowledge, that's like it's like a natural version of the burning of the Library of Alexandria. I mean, there's just so much. I mean, who knows what diseases we might have been able to conquer if we just listened to people more back then, So yeah, I look at the world and I think to myself, as far as things go, sooner or later, I will totally settle down. I know I'm not spending another winter here, for God's sakes, because it's just, you're like, hey, what do you want to do today? Not freeze to death, So anyhow, I've it was a good long ramble. And if you were watching this at regular speed, you deserve an award. I would watch me at 150 to 1.75, because as long as you can understand me, that's all that matters. Shapiro speeds. This is Freedom Phil. Like and subscribe, and always remember, turn up the video speed. Take it easy.